Hello, my ladies and guys here on this channel. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. And please disregard the mess happening behind me. It's a bit unorganized, but I'm getting it together and actually transitioning out of Christmas and from my trip that I just came back from. So please disregard that. But nonetheless, I wanted to come on here and talk about a subject again that can never be talked about too much because all my content is based around values and morality and men and women and how we're different and how we date and relate and communicate with one another. And so I have talked about this subject already so many times, but like I said, it can never be talked about too much. And I had another burst of passion to come on here and speak about it yet again. And that is why sleeping with men is destroying you. And it's a topic that, you hear a lot about just when you go outside into the world and you're doing daily activities. And no one ever has the courage to speak up about the dangers of it and why it is so detrimental, why it is killing your chances at love and romance and communication and having healthy, thriving relationships. So nobody, everybody just keeps quiet about it. Everybody is kind of just too scared to own the truth of it. And I think also a lot of people are just misinformed, right? We've been sold these different agendas and narratives of why hookup culture is doing good for women when it is in fact doing complete opposite and it is completely anti-woman. So I just want to come on here and talk, more in depth about that as I already have previously because I always have so much to say on the topic. So I kind of want this might be a little bit long, but I kind of just want this to be more of like a sit down and chat. And I'm going to go through a bunch of notes that I have written up about the subject just to make sure that I kind of cover everything that I would like to. And starting off, you know, growing up in this generation currently and the generation that has come behind me, um, we're so programmed to this new way of living where women are more out of the home and into the workforce because the feminists in, I think it was the 60s, they started to fight for their independence, their autonomy. They fought for sexual revolution, and it broke out, and women decided that they wanted to be more out of the home and have more freedom to choose whether they want to raise children or go to work. And with that came the um, the whole chaos of women also wanting to explore their sexuality and sleep around with different men and sleep around without consequences, quote unquote, and sleep around without being married, right? Being in more polygamous relationships, which personally I think is complete bullshit. um, but yeah, women wanted to have that right and that freedom to choose. So they decided to fight for that. And soon thereafter came the invention of birth control, right? They said, oh, okay, you want to be out of the home and sleep around more like men can. So we'll create a pill for you to where you can have sexual relations without risking getting pregnant and, producing a baby out of that. But the real truth of the matter is that having sexual relations always comes with consequences, no matter what you've been told, no matter what your belief system is about it or around it, no matter what you've witnessed and seen, some of the people that are closest to you have and do around you, it always comes with consequences. Okay, and then of course came more of the popularization of Hollywood movies, right? All the Hollywood movies that would show this extreme, like, passionate romance, and it just showed this dynamic of a couple that was just so happily and magnetically attracted to one another, and all those hormones and cocktails of chemicals in their brains were just rushing, and so they just jump into bed together, and then they create a romance out of that in the movie, right? That's what they're portraying to you. That's what the story is that they jump into bed immediately after meeting one another. They have this crazy spark of romance, and now you're conditioned to believe that that's how it's supposed to be, and that's what will get you your happy ending, right? And then, of course, with the Hollywood movies, rap culture, hip hop culture, has also indoctrinated us, and really put this sexualization on women as a whole. All the rap lyrics are singing about how women are basically sexual objects, and even the women have now, converted into seeing themselves as sexual objects as they are consuming this kind of content and this kind of music. And so they've also adapted the belief system that they are sexual objects to men, and that they can give men pleasure, and they can make this, like, mind-blowing sexual experience for them. It's all just very twisted and perverted, quite honestly. And it's completely, it's affected us in the worst possible way. It's affected us and costed us emotionally, psychologically, financially, spiritually, all of which ways it has affected us, and the wellness and the health of our entire well-being, and really pulling us away from our true femininity, because that's what the agenda, for this whole government system is, to really pull women away from their femininity and get them to be more like men, because when you're acting like a man, you feel more equal to a man, and then equal pay, and yada yada yada, all that blah 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 that I'm not going to get too much into here. But that's what it has created. So women, when they were so conformed to the home, they felt like their free will was taken away from them, when in reality, it was actually being protected, right? Nobody wants to feel like their free will is being taken away. But the truth of the matter also is that women need boundary. Everybody needs boundaries, right? We all need the container of the masculine, which is the boundaries, in order to thrive, in order to feel, the abundance of what life has to offer, in order to feel very safe and secure. We all need that container of having boundaries. And so, since women had decided that their free will was taken away, they thought that the better option was to engage in hookup culture. And what do we see now? A whole generation who is glamorizing and even promoting hookup culture. It is a matter of fact that women do not just have casual relations or one night stands, simply because of our biology. And men don't either. It's to a different extent, but men do deal with the repercussions of, going through one night stands and engaging in the hookup culture that is so rampant. They do, but I'll get into more of how it does affect men as well. But first, simply starting with women's biology, right? We as women, we release a flood of oxytocin in our brains, and bond physiologically and psychologically to someone that we become entangled with, right? Someone that we are literally tying ourselves to, joining together, sharing bodily fluids, sharing intimate and emotional connection. We release a flood of oxytocin when we experience this, okay? And oxytocin is a very powerful chemical that is predominantly in the female hormonal system, which bonds us to a guy. Now, this is a very genius system. Now, oxytocin is what is released when we oxytocin and prolactin is what is released whenever we give birth to a child, right? It's very genius because we are, we're releasing this child that we've created for 9 months in our womb, and the child is coming out into the world, and it needs to be protected and provided for. The child needs to feel loved, and the child needs to have a chance at survival. And so the oxytocin hormone bonds us to the child. So this is a very powerful chemical that is at its highest when we release, when we give birth, and when we bond to a man through sexual intimacy. Okay. So when you are being sexually intimate with a man, the reason why these hormones are meant to naturally bond you and tie you together is because if you do in fact create a baby, nature has a way of saying, well, you are trying to, you're letting an object into your body, and you're susceptible to being impregnated, and I need you to make sure that that baby survives, and I need you to make sure that that man stays with you and provides for you and protects for you and make sure that that child has everything that it needs, right? So that is why that whether you get pregnant or not, those hormones are going to be released in order to make sure that you stay with the man that you are allowing to enter into your body. And just to give you another fact of these women who are pushing such an agenda of sleeping with your boyfriend and, engaging in hookup culture, it is a very high percentage. I believe it's like 81% of women have never experienced an orgasm. They have never experienced an orgasm, all right? So you're not even hearing the full story and the full experience of what is actually happening behind the scenes or during that intimate time, okay? You're just being sold an agenda, right? You're actually, they're projecting their brokenness and their feelings of low self-esteem and insecurities onto you, if that's what they are doing, and trying to maybe persuade you that it's such a high experience. No, okay? What you go in for it for is to create love, create a spiritual bond with your partner, and to reach orgasm, right? That's what you do for. So most women are not even experiencing that. They're just not, right? And there's a mature orgasm, and then there's an immature orgasm, as explained in Freudian theory, which means that there is orgasm from male energy, from penetration, and then there is orgasm from just clitoral stimulation alone. And anytime that a woman is giving orgasm to herself, that's not male penetrative orgasm, right? That's not taking her to the highest level of her femininity. That is simply her doing it to herself, which is masculine energy, right? A lot of these women are so closed off and so like shut off. Their body is just so tensed up from being with some random guy who doesn't even know, their last name. They know nothing about them. They've provided nothing for them. And so they don't feel safe with them, right? So their bodies are just so tense and so closed up that it's actually impossible for them to reach real orgasm. Okay, and there is a lot of other factors that also could play into that, as such as like medical conditions and taking certain prescription pills and stuff like that. That does contribute as well, but especially number one being that they're sleeping with a guy who doesn't even know who they are, right? How can you fully open yourself up to a guy who knows nothing about your heart and your spirit, who knows nothing about your emotions, who you can't even feel safe running to when you have an issue or you have a emotional trigger, right? You just, that's impossible. You can't do that, right? Our biology, our psychology, like who we are as women, we're not even built for that. As human spiritual beings, we are not built for that. And guess what? Another secret that they also probably don't want you to know is that we women, we are sexually superior to men. Yeah, we are. We are the ones who are sexually superior. They have sold this idea that men have always been sexually superior to us, and that's why we wanted to fight for our sexuality and expression of it back. But we are the ones that are sexually superior to them. And why is that? Because we have the ability to be multi-orgasmic, right? We can just go on and on and on and experience like so many orgasms. And I'm sorry to be so explicit, and I'll probably will be a little bit more explicit as I go on. But it's just to be raw with you. We can experience multi orgasms in one session, I guess you could call it. But men, masculine energy, they can't do that, right? Their body anatomy, it doesn't allow for that. They go through a refractory period after they orgasm, release oxytocin, estrogen, vasopressin, and prolactin throughout their bloodstream. And so once they're done, they're done. They have to go through that refractory period for X amount of time, and they can't get erect again for that amount of time. Okay, so we are very sexually superior to men. But the high dopamine and estrogen levels for men, once they have depleted, they make him very like tired and passive, and just kind of like feeling like drained after putting in so much energy and work into keeping that erection and then ejaculating. So yeah, we are very much sexually superior to men, despite whatever it is that you have been told. As I'm sure you've been convinced that your sexuality has been suppressed, and you need to like just spread it out here, 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 here to prove that you can be like a guy, to prove that you will not be oppressed, and God, whatever it is. I don't even know. I don't even really pay attention to this just bullcorn, because that's exactly what I think that it is. It's truly just bullcorn and nonsense, and I have a brain to think for myself and understand the consequences of that area. But yeah, that's what they will sell to you. Okay, so I will hear women, they will speak so casually about their sex lives. Like, I will go, you know, out around friends or out in groups or whatever, and I will just every once in a while casually hear a woman just openly bragging and just not even thinking, um, talking about her casual relations with a guy. And, this guy is not her partner. They don't have like an intimate relationship. They just meet each other and they use each other for fun, right? Which it's really not fun, okay? It's not fun. It might be more fun for the guy, right? Because his ego's getting stroked, and he's like, I conquered this woman here, and now I feel like I've won the mating game, right? But the woman is losing so much from that, right? And so when I hear these women like talk about their sex lives so casually with just any guy who has done nothing for them, I'm literally just like, ew, that is so gross. Like, that is gross. Do you hear what you're talking about? Do you hear yourself right now? I mean, people, think with your brain. These women are really, truly not experiencing any kinds of pleasure They're just pleasing a man's sexual fantasies. They're pleasing the gratification of a man's need to ejaculate, okay? They're pleasing a man's fleshly driven desires to get inside the world of a woman's body, okay? Because that's what men strive for, right? That's what this potent sexual energy is here for. It's for men, it's for them to be um, goal driven and feel like a strong desire to get inside of our world and connect with us intimately through sexuality, right? So these women are, they're just being pleasing to a man because they feel that that's what they have to do in order to win his love, in order to feel like he's not going to leave them. And I get it. I get it. And I used to think that I seriously, I was like, I just like all these like guys in high school and girls that were around me and they were all doing that stuff, and I just started to believe, oh, like is that what I'm supposed to do in order to keep a boyfriend? Um, but that's far from the truth. It really truly is. And so these women are numbing their bodies. They're numbing themselves from feeling any real emotions, any real connections. They can't even feel what's really happening in their feminine bodies. And it's just like when we, numb ourselves with food, right? We numb ourselves. We eat so much food. People that really are overweight and struggle with eating, they just eat and eat and eat in order to numb out the pain that they're feeling, not only in their bodies but also like in their emotions, right? It's like trauma eating. They're just eating and consuming in order to cover up a deeper issue, that's going on psychologically, and from family history. They're just eating to really numb that out. And even I have a history, like in my family, of women who really struggled with eating disorders and emotional eating, and blocking out any traumas from their past and childhood and using food to comfort that, right? So it's the same way, right? Some people just end up turning to food in order to comfort themselves and numb out their bodies from feeling. And then there's other people who turn to sexual intimacy in order to numb that void and feel and fill that void. Okay, but with sexual intimacy, it's even more difficult to cut those spiritual ties. So in religion, it is called forming soul ties or forming spiritual ties with someone when you come together and sleep with them, right? And that's really, it goes back to the scripture of, because the Bible says, a man shall leave his father and mother and cleave unto his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. So you become one with the person that you are sleeping with. And this is why you start feeling a lot of what they're feeling. You start acting out in ways, you become really, really triggered and sensitive to what they are dealing with, because you're literally exchanging energy and exchanging bodily fluids and exchanging emotions, exchanging demons. If you are a Christian, of course, the Bible calls it demons. You're exchanging, like, you're becoming one with them, right? No other way to really put that is you're just exchanging everything with the person you are coming together with. So it's really just it's complete bullcorn that you don't have repercussions. Even if you sleep with someone and then you never see them again, there's a piece of them that will always be there with you. And of course there is healing in that, right? Because God can heal us from any of our brokenness. He can, wash that all away and make us new again. The Bible says, do not be conformed to the ways of the world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, right? So, he can literally take all that away from us and make us whole again in his eyes, and as a child of God, and as someone new. But why would you not want to prevent yourself from, going through all of that heartbreak and all of that breaking of those spiritual ties? If you can, you should want to prevent that, and you should use your voice, and let your peers and your friends and your family members even know about the repercussions of having casual relations with someone that you are not married to. Okay. And as I was saying, is that men do deal with repercussions from it, even though it's not to the same extent. They do deal with a lot of the tragedy that comes with coming together with a woman. And I used to constantly listen to all of my girlfriends and peers and even family members complain and complain about their boyfriends, right? They were always complaining about their boyfriends. They were always, you know, just dumping so much trauma onto other women, or, people that they felt close to, about the issues that they were having with their partner, and why that partner was so toxic. And he was abusive, he was verbally abusive, physically, whichever way, just like stuck in this perpetuating toxic cycle of a relationship. And they just felt like they could not get away from him, and they were so addicted and so intoxicated from being with him. And I used to never understand. Like, I literally could not wrap my head around, and I would question, why do they have all these like toxic relationships? Why are they staying in these toxic relationships, and getting so entangled with someone that they already know is not good for them? Why can't they just get up and leave that relationship? And I can tell you that the number one reason why they can't is because they are laying down with him. You're under the influence. It's like you're on a drug, you're on a high. You have these rose-colored glasses on to, canceling out all the bad things and red flags. And I really hate to use that word, just because it is something that's so popular on the internet. But it's true, you will have these rose glasses on and negate all the red flags that were there, and that you could have easily stepped away from had you not got entangled with him intimately. Okay, so this is what these women are doing to destroy themselves. They keep sleeping with him and sleeping with him and sleeping with him, and strengthening these neural pathways, and then they make it almost impossible for themselves to separate from this guy. And so that's why they stay in these toxic relationships. And I couldn't really ever understand this because I hadn't experienced this, because I wasn't under the influence of, sharing my sexual energy with anyone, because I didn't fall into the trap of, you know, pleasing your boyfriend by giving him a part of yourself that is so sacred, and is supposed to be so sheltered, and it's supposed to be like it's such a gift from God, and it's supposed to be transmuted into a more purposeful meaning in life, right? That sexual energy is so potent that it's supposed to be transmuted and shared only with someone who you are married to and have emotional bonding with, and shared with this person in order to create a bigger purpose, right? And what does that sexual creative energy bring? Well, it brings literally a baby. It literally starts a family. So it's the most potent energy on the planet, and we just pretend like it means nothing. We literally worship money over our bodies at this point in the world. We glamorize hookup culture, worship money, and pretend like sexual energy is it doesn't mean anything. It can be shared with everyone, right? You can just leave a piece here, leave a piece of yourself here, and who cares, right? This is literally disgusting, and it's literally anti-God. It is completely not the truth, and not what you would want to see for yourself if you want to be someone who does prosper and who does make a life for herself that is more purposeful and meaningful, and who does want to leave a legacy to her children if she decides to have children, and to serve a better purpose in this world. All this sexual energy, that's what it's used for, in order to create something more beautiful and serve that purpose. So it is just as harmful as men. It's not just one versus the other. Um, Men do get intoxicated and fall under the influence of, having some good, passionate romance with a woman that is probably not the best fit for them. Probably not the woman that he really wants to see himself with and committing his resources to. Um, they fall into that trap of intoxication just like we do, and we have these waves in our brain that make our brain adaptable and moldable. So our brain is plastic, and it can be changed, and it can be adapted to our environments. And so neural pathways are created and strengthened when we keep repeating patterns and habits in our life. So um, that's exactly what happens when men participate in sleeping with so many different women. They just strengthen these waves in their brains, and feel like they always need a new and different woman in order to stay satisfied, in order to hit that level of dopamine hit, right? It's literally the same situation when he's like when men are engaging in pornography, except actually this is worse. But so pornography is more like they're actually training their brain to be sexually aroused by sexual fantasies, by a woman on a screen who's like acting and doesn't have any like emotional needs, none of these emotional coin slots that need to be filled up. He's just getting an erection through a fantasy world, through a screen, right? So something that's very much not real. So that's also very, very detrimental. But the pornography gets to be really addicting for men, and um, that's why like they just keep creating these neural pathways that make them feel like that's the only way that they can become erect, right? With a new and different woman, not having to invest emotionally, not having to hear her out and listen to her feelings, and solve problems with one another in the relationship. They're just getting a quick, you know um, sexual gratification through a screen. So all of it is just very, very detrimental to the male and female psyche, and physiologically. So when men are training themselves to sleep with so many different women, they're already trying to fill a void inside. They already have this hole inside that they're trying to fill, um, by thinking that a new and different woman will fill that void and help them achieve their full masculinity, and allow a woman to reach that level of openness, and reach that level of surrender, right? And vulnerability, right? Because that's what the female orgasm is. It's full surrender. It's full openness. It's I trust you, and I open myself up and my body to you wholly and completely. And men, they want to achieve that, right? So they're already trying to fill a void inside of them, by engaging this in this act, and achieve that kind of pleasure and achieve that vasopressin bonding, going back to the hormones. Hi, baby. Come on. Come on. Come on. Um, yeah, so achieving this vasopressin bonding with a woman, right? And vasopressin and testosterone is what bonds men to you, via, solving problems, feeling the emotional closeness. Solving problems is very, very big for men. And, if you follow my content regularly, I talk a lot about how you have to make men solve problems for you. And that's not just in the way of, oh, he helped me fix my car, or, he clasped my necklace and solved that problem. I mean, that's great too, right? That works. But it also goes as deep as, like, sexuality, right? Coming together in that way. Um, so these women who are being so easy, and giving men so much easy access to their bodies, they're actually not bonding with them at all, because they're not even creating that, vasopressin bond with these women, because they're not having to, like, really work and earn access to their bodies. They're just, like, saying, here you go, like, I'll please you, I'll just lay here, I'll please you. And um, they're just, like, helping him and giving him pleasure, and he's not bonding at all in that way, right? Because that's how men need to bond, through helping, through working and earning their way in, and solving problems with you, and not having so much easy access, right? Hi baby. And so men, a lot of times, they actually become really, really unaware that, they've trained their brains um, to be this way, right? Um, to, like, never be satisfied with just one woman. They're, a lot of times, they're not even aware, right? They're they know intuitively that something is missing, but they're not aware that, um, sleeping all around is not going to help fill that, and, like, sleeping with so many different women. And even for the guys that, maybe are not, like, hooking up with women, but just so, just getting into this boyfriend girlfriend dynamic, and then leaving that relationship once one thing or one, argument takes place, and then going into another one, and basically creating a bunch of notches on their belts, and widening themselves, but they're not actually going deep, right? It's so easy to just add a new notch and widen yourself and spread yourself out so largely, but it's much harder to actually get to the root of the issue, solve it, figure out, the root of it, and, deepen that connection that they have with a woman. So literally, guess what now? After they've done all that, they no longer trust women, right? That's why they stray away from the idea of marriage, because they've already done slept with so many different women, got into these boyfriend girlfriend dynamics, and spread themselves out so largely that they do not trust women anymore. They don't have trust for them, right? And men value fidelity even more than women do, because it's a big deal to them when they allocate their resources to one woman. It's a big deal to them when they invest their time, energy, resources, emotional capacity into a woman. So that's why, and also in their status, right? It's very important to a man's status, if he is with a woman who is virtuous, and not spreading herself out to other men, and you know, um, making sure that his resources are very safe with her. So because they value that so much, and they've already done the do with so many different women, they don't even trust the women anymore, right? And they decide that marriage is, just not in their favor, and they can't commit to a woman ever again. And trust me, I know this stuff. I get to listen to a lot of older men's experiences with women, and their heartbreaks that they've gone through with women, and when they've been married and divorced a few different times. So I hear these things firsthand, and it's really sad to me. It's really so sad to me that this is where we have come. They just don't trust women anymore, because women are just so easy now, right? And one time I was, come on, baby. One time um, I was hanging out with some of the guys, and I was wearing a white dress, and I get a lot that I look like Marilyn Monroe, right? I mean, it makes sense. My hair is blonde. It's not very long, and I have pale skin, full lips, and my style is actually very elegant and resembles that of the women in the 50s. Okay, so one of the guys was saying that, oh, you're wearing a Marilyn Monroe dress, and you look just like her, yada yada yada, and he was like, the his friend, he was like, I don't remember what I was saying after. I mean, it's a compliment to me, right? So I was probably saying thank you, whatever. I was talking a little bit about Marilyn and like the things that she has gone through in her life, and how she ended up and whatnot. We just touched on the subject, and he, like, the first thing that he said about her was that, oh, she was a whore. And I was like, um, huh? Like, okay. Immediately after that was the first thing that he said about her. Not that she was so beautiful, not that she was like this timeless, elegant woman who became a huge superstar, um, but that she was a whore. But, immediately after he said that that was who was she was a whore, I was like, oh, now it makes sense to me. Now it makes sense to me as to why you can't keep your relationships healthy, right? You assume that all women are whores because guess what? They are to you because you're sleeping with them. You're sleeping with them, right? It confirmed the idea that that's how he views women. That was the first thing he said. That's just confirmation, right? Because that is his belief system. So that actually can go back to another reason of why I feel so passionate and strongly about, getting a message out there about men and women and how we are different and how we need to help each other understand the opposite sex in order to better have relationships together. Because I do witness a lot of, broken marriages that could have easily been fixed, right? Had they had this kind of information, had they understood how men are, how they understood how um, the knowledge of how men do think and how their brains are actually wired different and how their hormones are different than ours. And it's really just always comes down to a lack of communication and a lack of understanding of the opposite sex. So this knowledge is something that is it's so deep and meaningful to me because just I've seen so many broken relationships through not having this kind of knowledge that could have helped them to, work on their marriage and stay together. Um, so, anyways, just the simple, fact of how masculine energy is more external and feminine energy is internal. And masculine energy doesn't need to be internally penetrated in order to feel connected. They need to Feminine energy needs that. Masculine energy men are very visual and auditory. I mean, it doesn't take anything for them, right? They just see a naked woman and bam, they're ready to go. Women are not like that, right? We require so much work. We require so much of being poured into in order to trigger that sexual response to our partner. And so so when men feel really disconnected sexually with a woman, it's usually because he's not pouring into her enough emotionally and listening to her and really solving, issues that they have with one another. And so she just doesn't feel like she wants to open up to him, right? And when woman is closed off and her body is not able to receive him and be open to him, it really affects the intimate life in the bedroom. Okay, that's just what it does. And men, like, they energetically, they can feel that, right? So that's when it starts becoming really rocky in the um, sexual experience. And you'll hear the men talking about how she doesn't want to sleep with him anymore, and this is their wife, right? They're doing it right, they're married, whatever, but she just stops sleeping with him. She closes her body off to him, because he can't understand, like, how to really um, help her fall fully more into her essence of femininity. Okay, so this information is truly the most valuable thing that I've ever learned for myself. The polarity, the relationship worlds, the knowledge that we need to have on men and women. This is the most valuable information that I've ever learned. More valuable than anything that I ever learned in school and was being brainwashed into, okay? I didn't use how to measure the angle of a triangle ever in my life after I graduated. I did not ever need to learn, ever need to use algebra or the geometrics of a triangle, or like whatever this stupid crap is that you learn in high school, right? I never had to use that at any point in my life since I graduated, right? That's what they teach you. They teach you all this bullshit stuff, but they're not teaching you this valuable information in which you will always need, you will always be using, you will always have relationships in your life, right? But at least you can find the diameter of a triangle or a circle or whatever it is. I was never good at geometry or math. I hated it. And why? Because it completely stripped me away from my femininity. It was like my feminine soul just knew intuitively that I was meant for so much more, and that I felt like I was being trapped in the school system. And I'm not trying to sit here and bash those who, love to learn about stuff like this and, want to be in school, but the reality of it is that it never fit with my feminine soul, and I hated it. And I actually literally manifested physical disease from, like, physical illnesses, from, like, having to be trapped in that school environment, right? Into something that my higher self already wasn't doing. My higher self knew that that was not what I was supposed to be doing in life. So, speaking of school, for those of you who are in school or who are younger, and or even if you're older and you're still engaging in, sleeping with multiple men, I know it's become so normalized to engage in that kind of degenerate behavior. It's become celebrated. It's become um, almost like if you're pure, then they look at you like you're the weird one, you're the nasty one, there's something wrong with you. Why are you such a goody goody two shoes? You know, You're not going to be able to keep your man if you don't sleep with him. If you are dealing with that, or you are hearing that, and someone is trying to convince you to engage in that, or you're just falling into, the temptation of it, because it's very real. Because, like I said, sexual energy is very potent. Attraction is very powerful. It's very strong. It's supposed to be that way, right? If you are hearing this and dealing with this right now, please don't let that be your downfall. Do not let society or culture influence your decision to stay pure and to save yourself for a man who commits his life for you, who puts his life on the line, and you and your children's lives on the line to provide and protect for you. Okay? Who gives a crap about them calling you a goody two shoes, or you not being able to fit in with your friends? Who cares? You know what I have to say to that? Fuck that. Mm-hmm. Fuck that narrative. Oh yeah. I can be spicy. Excuse my French. But seriously, that's how I feel about it. That's how strongly passionate I feel about it. If anyone is trying to convince you to engage in that kind of behavior, I want you to take a look at their life. Take a look at their life and see how it's playing out for them. Are they happy? Are they making a lot of money? Are they serving a bigger purpose in this world? Are they in a healthy, thriving, healthy, emphasis on the healthy, relationship? Do they have that? Probably not. Probably not. Okay? Because their sexual energy is being dispersed all around, and they have nothing left to give to themselves. So fuck that narrative, okay? They are still just as redeemable as you are, okay? We are all redeemable under God's eyes. As God's children, we are all redeemable. There is healing that can be done for all of us. But if you can save yourself that heartbreak, save yourself all that emotional turmoil and pain, you should do it. Right? Especially if it's, over some guy who he texts you good morning beautiful every morning. He tells you that you look hot in your dress one day at school. He tells you that he just needs to have his, sexual fix, and he loves you and he thinks you're so beautiful. No. Not a good enough excuse. If he can protect and provide for you, if he can commit to you, if he can create a family with you, see you as his wife, and allocate his resources to you, then that's a man to consider having a sexual attraction for. Okay? But otherwise, he texts you good morning? No, absolutely not. He does not deserve that sacred and special, potent gift of sexual energy, of your sexuality, right? That is supposed to be covered and kept for someone who is willing to invest fully into you, right? Okay, so we've talked about science, hormones, we've talked about spiritual ties, that aspect of when you engage in sleeping with someone. But what about your physiology, right? Your body, what you are opening your body up to. The diseases that you're opening yourself up to. Again, another topic that I always heard in high school that was so nonchalantly discussed. It was like, oh, y'all, I got this STD from my boyfriend. I got my STD from him, and I went to the doctor, and I got some medicine for it. Crazy. Like, young me was just like, uh, just given so much side eye. I was so hella confused. Obviously, my brain was not fully developed, and I definitely didn't have as much of a spine as I do now to, like, speak up about it and save a girl. Um, but now, thinking back on that, I'm like, why, why is this so nonchalant? Like, they're just talking about their STDs and diseases that they've now developed through having sexual relations. Like it just doesn't really mean anything. Like, who cares, right? Who cares? So the diseases that you open yourself up to when you engage in sexual immorality. And the Bible says that sexual immorality is the only sin against your own body. And that's a factor in it, right? You're opening yourself up to seriously being destroyed, right? And then not only for yourself, like harming your own health, but what about your husband, right? The husband of your future that does decide to, commit his life to you. Now you have to think about his sexual health, right? And him too, it's on their part too. Like, their sexual health is obviously just as important as our sexual health, because we can give diseases to each other. But it's absolutely pathetic, okay? And if you compare two teenage girls side by side, if you take one teenage girl who is pure and virtuous, and then you take another teenage girl who is, sleeping with, all her boyfriends and, engaging in that kind of behaviors, you can actually see, like, you can distinctively see the differences of how much life force is left in them. It exudes, like, in their outer appearance of how, like, sickly the girl is who is, like, who just keeps dispersing all her sexual energy all around, versus the one who is more pure and, sacred and saving herself, right? Like, the energies are just so different. And the one who is engaging in, you know, sleeping with boyfriends, she's going to naturally, like, go to more doctor's appointments. She's going to have more checkups in her sexual health. She will get more physically sick, even if it's not just sexual diseases and STDs, but more sick, like, physically with other illnesses, right? Because that's how potent the sexual energy is. Um, that's how, you know, putting all of this weight onto your emotional health, it manifests as physical disease in your body, right? Um, so these women, these young girls who are, getting these regular sexual checkups, um, they're also being put on birth control, right? And you guys know how I feel about birth control, right? Been there, done that. I think it's literally the devil. Birth control was invented literally to be anti-God, to push a very, very unhealthy agenda for women to be able to sleep around. And the just the fact alone of what birth control does to a woman's body, right? Especially a young woman who's still developing, all her hormones, being, like, completely thrown out of balance, going all wacky, okay? It's sick. It's really sick. And these moms, literally, the parents of these teenage girls are, like, honey, let me know when you start sleeping with your boyfriend, because I just want to take you to the doctor and get you on some birth control. I can't tell you how many times I have heard that from moms. I just cannot even believe that. Like, I would never tell my daughter that, right? Like, obviously, my daughter I would want her to know that she has free will to do that, right? But I would most definitely let her know the consequences of it, let her know what I went through, being on birth control, and how, it greatly affects your hormones and actually even makes you have, like, pick men who aren't good for you, right? So scientifically, there's been so much research to show that birth control actually affects the way that we vet men and we choose them, and we tend to pick more feminized men when we are being so filled with fake hormones. I mean, it makes sense, right? You're being masculinized. You're literally being stripped of your femininity, of your God-given femininity. You're being stripped from that through a pill. So naturally, you would pick more feminized men because the two forces they need, that's what attracts the feminine and the masculine. So if you're more masculine, you'll attract a more feminine guy, and that's what you're going to be attracted to because your hormones they're not right, they're all crazy. So yeah, I will hear the moms say that so nonchalantly instead of actually informing their daughters of the dangers of sleeping with her boyfriend, and getting pregnant before she is married. And that actually um, reminds me of when I was like younger and I was dealing with a lot of um, period issues. Um, I was on like birth control or whatever for a little while. I think I was like going back and forth on it, just because I was having a lot of pain, and just my periods weren't really regular. Well, of course, I didn't know all this information now, but it wasn't regular, and I was having just a lot of pain, and I just hated this. Like, it was just such a burden on my month to month life of having to deal with a period, right? I didn't understand the sacredness of it then. So I went to a doctor, and it was a guy, right? This is a male OBGYN. And I kid you not, when I went in telling him about how I was, dealing with the pains of a period, and having a lot of brain fog and just not feeling myself, not feeling my best, healthiest self. I kid you not, he said to me, um, he recommended birth control and said to me, well, it's good to be on birth control in case of, like, one drunken night out in the bar and you end up sleeping with someone. It's good to be on birth control because in case that happens. And I was just like, so taken back. I was so taken back by this. I'm like, oh my God. Like, and I was younger then, right? Like, I was different than who I am now. Who I am now, I couldn't even imagine how I would react. I literally wouldn't be able to keep my mouth shut. But then I was much more of a pleaser, like, didn't want to say anything wrong. Didn't really care about speaking the truth. But still, I was just like thinking, like, oh my God, like, this is like a father, and he's telling this young girl, like, I was like a teenager, maybe I was like 17 or whatnot, that it's good to be on birth control in case of a drunken one night stand. Needless to say, I never saw that doctor again, right? Instead of informing me that my hormones were out of balance, that I needed to take a deeper look into my family issues, what I was going through emotionally, what I was eating, what my lifestyle was like, all of these things that regulate the female cycle. No, I didn't get any of that information. It was like, here's birth control. This is what's gonna help your hormones, and we'll just block them all out. We'll just pretend like they don't exist, so that way you can, be like a man and have the start to develop the male hormonal system. Like, this is so screwed up. And I really almost wanted to say another word. But it just goes to show like how passionate I am about these topics, right? Because the information that is so lacking now in the agenda that is being pushed, and I know I've said this so many times, but it's really it's infuriating to me. Just because I know what it's like and I've been through it, and now I feel so much pull and passion and purpose to getting this message out there for other girls who may be going through the same thing, who maybe don't know where to turn, who don't understand why they are having so much pains in their periods, and why they don't understand why their boyfriends are being, crazy and they just can't leave their boyfriends. Well, I'm telling you all of this right now, right here, right? Watch your life blossom for the better. Watch your health blossom. Watch your beauty radiate if you decide to remain celibate and keep your sexual energy sacred and pursue healthier, better things for yourself. Watch all of that blossom and your finances grow at that, if you decide to make that decision, okay? Because giving away your sexuality is no joke. It's really no joke, and it's very disturbing to me how celebrated it is. Yeah, I can't say that enough. So it is my duty now as a feminine woman who truly has the spirit of God and truly wants to help younger girls, help older women, help women just in general, and men, of course, but specifically this is targeting to women. It's my duty to spread this message. That's why I feel so strongly about, you know, getting this out there. And I don't care if two people view this, two people take in this message, one person decides to make that right decision to not sleep around, sleep with their boyfriends, play that whole game, just to simply say that they pleased the man and, you know, kept him from having his sexual frustrations, gave him a place to ejaculate. No, that's not your problem. He needs a place to ejaculate. That's not your problem. Not your problem, honey. He is a man. Even if he is still a boy and not yet become a man. Men are built differently. Okay? They are supposed to be raised to be men. Strong, independent, fight, provide, protect, okay? Conquer, help, solve, serve, give. Masculine energy is giving, right? Masculine energy gives us sperm, and we receive that sperm, and we create something with that sperm. We create something bigger, right? So that's how potent the masculine and feminine energies are. If we can just understand the two most powerful attracting forces on this planet. Okay? So I'm just going to end it here. I could go on and on about this subject. I have other videos that discuss this kind of stuff if you are interested in, hearing more about this topic. And if you need more advice, or, you need guidance on a certain situation that you're dealing with in your life, I do offer one-on-one coaching for those of you ladies who, want to put your faith and trust in me. I'm here to hopefully guide you through that journey. Okay. Remember that your life is you're going to set yourself up so much better for emotional integrity, success in that area, success in your finances, success in your health, if you decide to keep your sexual energy sacred to one man who vows his life for you. And you know, another thing that I always witness again, and I actually witnessed this. I was listening to someone talk about it just recently, but even going back to, like, I remember when I was in high school and I was always hearing about um, the issues that were coming up for a couple that they had a baby in high school or whatever outside of wedlock, and basically either the guy or the girl engaged in a one night stand, or they were in a relationship with the other person and they made a child from that, right? The woman ended up getting pregnant, and then now they face so many issues with the other partner, right? One of, you know, some of the guys, they like they create a baby with a woman, and then that woman, because she's so bonded to him, you know, spiritually and physically, because she's so tied to him, because she's become one with him through connecting spiritually, intimately, um, she doesn't want him to see the child, right? And then, hey, that's good for the court system. The government loves that, right? It's good for the courts. You can just bring that toxicity situation to court because you're sleeping with someone outside of wedlock and you created a baby, and now you're not allowed to see your child, right? You can't watch that child grow up when all you wanted to be was a father or a mother, but that other partner is keeping you and keeping you from them and using that child as a crutch, right? To get back at a guy who decided not to commit to you. This happens, right? All the time this happens. Yeah. And in high school, it was a couple that had a baby, and um, they broke up for whatever reason, and she did not want her kid around the new girlfriend, right? It was a bunch of toxicity. The child was having to go through that emotional turmoil of just dealing with their parents not even getting along, dealing with their parents of being separated in the first place, not being able to work it out between the two of them. Bullshit. It's really all bullshit, right? All this bullshit could be avoided if we come back to our root traditional values. I don't even like to call them traditional values because I think it's just having morality in the first place, right? Having a sense of morality and not creating children and sleeping with someone who is not your longtime partner slash husband. That's how it can be avoided. Okay, that's how you can easily step away from a guy who's not good for you and who has a bunch of red flags. That's how you can. You just don't sleep with them. You don't fall under the influence of their sexual influence. You know, becoming so intoxicated with that bond, right? Because it's inevitable to create that bond. So, anyways, like I said, I'm shutting up. I hope you guys have enjoyed this very long talk through. And if it has helped you, or if you like this kind of content, make sure you subscribe, leave a comment down below, follow my socials, all my socials, which I will link in the description box. I also do have a feminine dating course, which is created to help you navigate as a feminine lady the dating world, how it works, how to understand men. It even has a lesson in there about sleeping together. So I talk about this in that course as well. So much valuable information, and I think it will be very helpful for you in the long run. Okay, so of course, make sure you subscribe. As always, I will see you guys in the next video. I love you so much. Goodbye. Mwah.